It's Friday night. It's the United Pubcast. You're back. It's Larry. I'm hosting today. Tom's got the honors of sitting back, relaxing, not having to think because, as you can see, he's growing a beard. He's struggling. Tom, how are you? Happy Friday. By the way, how pissy rainy. It's so wet in Sydney at the moment. You'd swear you live in Manchester.
Well, yeah, very resemblant of Manchester weather at the moment. 2 nights ago it was all over Sydney as how humid it was. I think everyone sort of initially, summer has arrived, getting the fans out and sort of wet towels, sort of trying to get to sleep. And then 2 days later, you're here in track pants and a jacket, and yeah, resemblant of Manchester. But as I said, probably in the title, there is a new arrival in Manchester. He'll have to get used to the weather, I think.
There is a new arrival in Manchester. And before we rip into it, I'll just say g'day to some people in the comments. We got Josh, evening lads, evening mates. We've got Rob, we've got Emad, we've got Mike, and we've also got Ian. Tom, there is a new man in Manchester. He goes by the name of Ralf Rangnick. Now, a lot of people are supposedly experts on said German. I'm not going to claim to be one of them, but I will say that I did catch some of the football he did play at Hoffenheim. I've had a good read around his achievements, what his philosophy in football is, and I also got to see him in terms of RB Leipzig, and you've seen the evolution of what RB Leipzig have done in terms of the side they were and consecutive promotions into the Bundesliga. I think it was 3 years on the bounce. And you look at the squad they've been able to build and the fact that they're so competitive in what's really such a monopoly in terms of Bayern Munich's dominance year in, year out. What do you make of the appointment? Because for me, we're hearing it's going to be a 6-month contract. He then takes a 2-year consultancy. We're hearing a sporting director sort of position. It almost sounds too perfect. Tell me it's a dream, or what do you make of it, please?
Yeah, it's very un-Man United like. It looks like a football decision, and not often we make football decisions. So it's caught everyone off guard a little bit. Now, while it's so exciting, I'm sure like everyone has been spending the last 6 hours or 12 hours on YouTube watching his coaching philosophy videos and his tactics and hearing him talking about the game. He's fantastic to listen to in the way he breaks down things. He's obviously extremely knowledgeable. He has done an amazing job around Europe. Obviously in Germany as well, but he's moved over to Russia now. So he has everything about him, and you do listen to him, and you can't help but get excited. But I do want to not tone down the excitement because here I am on the bandwagon. However, he's done that at Hoffenheim. He's done that at Schalke. Managing now at Manchester United is a different beast. And those words are all they're great. They sound good. Now, can you implement that? Okay, it's very well telling a striker coming up in Red Bull Leipzig to do that. Can you tell Ronaldo to do it? Can he do it when David De Gea, the goalkeeper, is the second highest paid player? Can he do it with all the other commitments that a Manchester United manager has to do? Doing that sort of in the sort of shadows a little bit in Germany and sort of lesser clubs. You can go about your business and just focus on football. There are so many other commitments and so many other distractions at Manchester United. It's a different job. Now, he might succeed. Fingers crossed he does. He might be brilliant. But I think the most exciting thing, that's good. Okay, we've got a new coach, new ideas. This should improve us on the pitch. But as you say, in terms of moving into that consultancy sort of role, that's probably the more exciting thing, which sort of resembles a football decision by the club, which gives what do you think the consultancy job is? In my opinion, he'll obviously have a huge impact, or I think he'll have a huge impact on the new manager, deciding who that new manager is. And then obviously in terms of director of football, that type of role, in terms of, he has spoken before about sort of Man United. I think it was in 2016 he made a quote, or 2017. It was along the lines of, you can't just buy players for the sake of it. It's more important not to buy players than buy the wrong players. And he sort of alluded to Man United buying a lot of wrong players in the past, and that sort of sets back the sort of rebuilding process. So from a football point of view, fantastic. And while I'm so excited with everyone, I've been watching all the videos, you do need to sort of tone down the levels a little bit. But it's great, but it's a small step.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I do like the idea of the consultancy role, and like I touched on initially, I think seeing the evolution of RB Leipzig and what he's done there is extra impressive because you have to remember he doesn't have the resources of a Bayern Munich, a Manchester United, a Manchester City. So he's been finding a way to implement a playing style and get the players that complement that style, and that's kept them competitive despite not having an unlimited amount of funds. So really excited by that. You did touch on a point around the comments he made in 2017. And before we obviously go into the Chelsea preview and talk a little bit of tactics, I want to ask you then, which player do you think might actually benefit from Ralf Rangnick, and which player do you actually think might suffer from this appointment?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I'm sure when the news is confirmed, and we probably go live with a new video, we can dissect his management and those sort of possibilities a little bit further. But off the outlook, I think you automatically look at two players. You look at two new signings in Donny van der Beek. I call Donny van der Beek a new signing, but you know what I mean. Van der Beek and probably Jadon Sancho. He's obviously spoken very highly of Jadon Sancho in the past, and they're two young players you could see. I know Donny van der Beek was in Holland or the Netherlands, but it's very similar to German football in that aspect in terms of their development. Jadon Sancho obviously spent time in Germany, so you can definitely see a stark improvement in those two. You look at them the other way. I think in midfield, I think McTominay and Fred, in terms of their work rate, I think they will kick on. Or whether they're good enough to sort of have future careers at Manchester, I'm not quite sure. But I think in this interim period, I think they'll be very important under Ralf Rangnick. Who knows? They might both be on the bench. My inclination is they'll both be key, and I think everyone will have a different view of McFred at stage. At the moment, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer put McFred out, we're thinking, what the hell is he doing? If Ralf Rangnick does it, we're thinking, he's a tactical genius. He wants this, this, and this. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But I've just mentioned two players there who I think will do well. The two players, the two big boys, you have to consider in terms of who might struggle. You do have to look at Paul Pogba and Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, Paul Pogba, I think we can have the debate. Okay, he's out of contract. Ralf Rangnick, he might not suit the style. Okay, easy, get rid of him. You can't just do that with Ronaldo. Ronaldo might not fit the style, and Ralf Rangnick's coming in with this control and this idea of sort of restructuring the football club and doing things his way. Well, if Ronaldo's in the team, you're going to do things Ronaldo's way. It's very good, as I said, doing a good YouTube video in terms of talking about your tactics and your philosophy. Reality is something different when you're dealing with personalities, and he's never obviously dealt with someone of the ilk of Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, it'll be fascinating because on paper, you think he's the furthest thing from a Ralf Rangnick type player, but he's going to be first name on the team sheet because he's Cristiano Ronaldo. So it'll be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
I'm no tactical expert, but I mentioned this to you today. I don't understand, and you look at the way Solskjaer set up Manchester United, and I think there's no doubt about it. Cristiano Ronaldo coming in, while he's been brilliant individually, there is absolutely an argument that says, has he impacted the way Manchester United set up, both offensively and off the ball? And I think I look at us defensively, and even if Ronaldo doesn't necessarily press or has a very low percentage in terms of pressures applied, I think there could simply be an instruction where, because he's in the middle of the pitch, if you just told him to, this center half, I want you next to him all game. That doesn't require him to sprint, doesn't require him to press. But as long as he's cutting off a passing lane, and I think Cristiano Ronaldo can do that, I just, for the life of me, can't understand why Solskjaer, Carrick, or whoever it's been, any member of the coaching staff, hasn't thought to do that. But like you said, I'm really excited by what sort of creative ideas will Rangnick look to implement there.
I'm sure when it's confirmed, we'll break it down in terms of, okay, who's going to play where and sort of predict everything and sort of have a deeper dive into his tactical setup. However, my first instinct when I remember the name is the first football I remember from him was for RB Leipzig. And I think they had Poulsen and Werner up front. They pretty much played an old-fashioned 4-4-2. And I'm just thinking, look, he will be very flexible. There'll be times, sure, we'll play three at the back at some stage. I'm sure we'll play 4-3-3. I'm sure maybe his first couple of games with 4-2-3-1. So he will be flexible. Is there a case where he could just, to accommodate Ronaldo, because he's going to have to, he can come in with these big words and sort of talk tough. He won't be able to drop Ronaldo. I don't see a world where he can. So he does have to accommodate Ronaldo. Could you see a system where it's just an old-fashioned 4-4-2 with him and Cavani up front? Because Cavani will offer those legs.
I don't think so. And just because I think there's such an emphasis on possession and having a compact midfield and that extra man in the middle of the park. So just for that reason specifically, I just can't see him going with a 4-4-2. The other thing is, now to counter my argument, the reason I say we can't play a 4-4-2 is I don't see that work rate in a Jadon Sancho or Marcus Rashford under this manager, under Ralf Rangnick. I feel like they'll be forced to press. If they're not going to have the work rate, I don't think they'll be in the team. It's as simple as that. But what it does do, Tom, and we will move on to the Chelsea preview. That is why we're here. I think what we will see here, given that he will now that we know he will be here for the next 2.5 years, it puts these players on notice. It's a clean slate, but it's also a warning. You got to perform until between now and the end of the season, because if you don't, he's going to have a say in who the next manager is, and he'll absolutely have a say in what happens in terms of retention and recruitment. So there you go.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, let's rip into it. I'll come to a few comments and we'll talk about Chelsea. So we got Mike here. We look so much better when Bruno and Rashford came on. They were both making runs and wanting the ball. Absolutely, Mike. And I think that's something that I've considered in my starting 11, but we will come to that against Chelsea. And we've got Emad here. Some players have already made their bed. My mind won't change. That's a really good point. I think Paul Pogba's one who I think he'll go, Tom. Just, you
Well,
look
have
at
you
it.
seen the comments? Well, definitely Paul Pogba. I completely agree. But have you seen the comments that came out with Ralf Rangnick made about Luke Shaw a couple of years ago?
No, I haven't.
He came out and he was talking about Man United, and I think this was before the Euro, so cast your mind back maybe 2 years before Luke Shaw sort of found his form. And he's saying, they're talking about the transfer market, and Ralf Rangnick goes in and says, well, I think maybe left back is somewhere they need to look at. I know they have Luke Shaw, but I don't see Luke Shaw as a good enough player for Manchester United. And that was obviously before the City went on that run. But Luke Shaw sees that. He'll see that in the news. He'll open his phone. He'll see that. He'll be tagged in that. And that'll be an interesting dynamic. Well, I'm sure he'll have a clean slate, but that's something he has to work at. And it was the old argument with throwing Roy Keane as the interim manager. Well, Roy Keane's thrown half the players under the bus. That wasn't going to work. But Ralf Rangnick here has had one or two public opinions about players, a positive one about Jadon Sancho, a negative one about Luke Shaw. Well, I'm so excited. I don't want to sound like I'm downplaying this news. I'm so excited about it, but it's fascinating to see how some of the dynamics will unfold.
Absolutely. You got Stone Cold Steve Austin here. McTominay to suffer, not technical enough. I actually think he might be one of the beneficiaries. When I look at McTominay, Tom, keen to see if you agree with me, but he looks like that sort of player. I know he's like 24, 25 years of age, but you feel like with a bit of coaching, he might actually be able to go to that next level. He seems like and the reason I say that is if I think of the player that came in under Jose Mourinho, I thought he had no football about him whatsoever. Now, over the last 3 years, we've seen that ability go up a notch. Now, he's not quite starting 11 technical Michael Carrick level footballer, and he might never be, but he's got the range of pass in his game. And I just wonder if you can, if there is an element of training that Ralf Rangnick might have in his locker, or that he can potentially get that extra 1% out of Scott McTominay. Could we see a player like him break into that next bracket where he is one of the first names on the team sheet?
I was thinking a lot about McTominay today, and I was having a few discussions. And the interesting point for me, I think long term, if Ralf Rangnick has this sort of control over the football club going forward, I think Scott McTominay's future is probably a little bit in doubt. Maybe he can stay at the club, but in terms of the sort of first team prospects, I think he maybe struggle in the future. However, I think in this next 6 months, I think Scott McTominay might be one of the first names on the team sheet because forget his quality as a player, forget what he brings or what he doesn't bring. Absolutely nothing to do with them because what the new manager will want to do is implement his ideas, implement his sort of style. And what McTominay brings better than I think anyone in this team is he's coachable. He will listen and he will carry out instructions. Will Paul Pogba carry out the instructions? Not quite sure. Will Martial or Rashford? You're not quite sure. Ronaldo will do his own thing. Eric Bailly and Harry Maguire will likely do their own thing. Luke Shaw will do his own thing. Now, hopefully, Ralf Rangnick get in their heads, and he will sort of make these players more coachable. But Scott McTominay is a player. Jose Mourinho trusts with his life. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer trusts in every big game. And I think Ralf Rangnick will go in there and he'll trust McTominay to do the right thing by him. And that's why I think this next 6 months will be really big for him. The future, though, in terms of transfer markets and Ralf Rangnick's ideal footballer, he might maybe struggle in a couple of years' time. But for this first 6 months, I think it's huge for him.
Got a few mixed bag here. We've got Emad. McTominay is a better footballer than he's given credit for. There's a special player in there waiting to be unlocked. Interesting. We've got Ian. Need a 6. Scotty is an 8. Can't say I disagree. George. Now, George makes a good point here. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, does he fit into Ralph's team? That's the one. I actually think it could be an opportunity for Diogo Dalot. Now, I'm not a big fan of Diogo. I've made no secret of that. I think defensively he's piss poor. But in saying that, Wan-Bissaka can't put a 5-yard pass together. And I think Ralf Rangnick will value a player who's got a great attitude and who has technicality on the ball. And Diogo Dalot ticks those 2 boxes. So I wonder if he'll be able to get a tune out of it.
For me, look, I agree. However, I think like McTominay in this first 6 months, I think because we're obviously going to press high. Obviously, that's the way he wants to play. We're going to press high. A lot of times throughout this next 6 months, we're going to get that wrong, and teams are going to play through us because we're not used to doing that. So we'll be very exposed at the back, and I think there'll be a lot of one-on-one defending at the back where I think that's Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Could you imagine a one-on-one situation? Who do you want defending there, Wan-Bissaka or Dalot? It's going to be Wan-Bissaka. And I think in terms of getting results, I think it'll be a huge risk exposing Diogo Dalot because we're going to get played through at times when we're pressing because we're just sort of starting out in that style of play. So I think the one-on-one defending is going to be crucial over the next 6 months.
If you're talking about one-on-one defending, then I think Harry Maguire's position is going to be under threat, Tom. But let's not get into that, eh? I think I've upset you enough this week. All right,
Well, he'll
let's
be
see.
back
Let's
in
talk
after
about.
Eric Bailly gets injured against Chelsea.
Oh, I can't wait to watch Eric Bay get a man of the match performance this week. Can we talk about Chelsea, Tom? Flying high, top of the league, unreal form, slapped Juventus as if they were nothing. So tell me how Manchester United are going to win this game.
They do have a few injuries though, because I know Kante is obviously key to the way they play. Ben Chilwell looks like
Absolutely.
a potentially serious injury, and their fullback scored doubles every single game. Every time I turn it on, Chelsea
Rhys
Chilwell
James is a
scoring,
player, isn't
or
he?
Reece James is scoring type thing. So that'll impact them in terms of the way they attack, having no fullbacks and sort of that security sort of blanket of N'Golo Kante. So I don't know. I think Romelu Lukaku's back. He hasn't been playing, but he's sort of back in the squad. You'd assume he'd come back in. I don't think he played against Juventus, but I think he's ready to go. So
Is he going to score?
I back our players to look. I've made no secret. I'm not a fan of Lukaku. I don't think he's a great footballer. I think if your defenders defend well and your defenders defend like adults, you can deal with Lukaku. I think if you see his goals, it's like the defenders falling over themselves or they're sort of playing offside when he's in behind. No, just think if you defend properly against Romelu Lukaku, you'll be fine. Get close to his touch, pinch that second touch, and you're away. If you allow him to bully you, I'll be interested to see who he pins himself to. I assume he'll pin himself to Victor Lindelof if the partners are Lindelof and Bay. Could be a tough night, but look, Bay should be experienced enough to get over and cover. So, look, in saying that, I said Mo Salah wouldn't score against us, and he scored a hat-trick. So who knows what Lukaku is going to be doing. But not confident, but I think those fullback injuries, well, not the fullback injuries, obviously Reece James is going to play, but in terms of it'll off-balance that a little bit with the Chilwell injury. They're obviously going to put in Marcus Alonso, who loves a goal, obviously. Marcus Alonso scores every second
Can't
week as
defend.
well. I think that is the thing. In terms of Jadon Sancho, I wouldn't say Jadon Sancho has found some form, but he's obviously got a goal, so I assume he'll start. Marcus Rashford will likely very well start on the left-hand side. Having that threat in behind the fullbacks in a makeshift back four, I assume they're going to play with a four, in a makeshift sort of system like that, I think it'll just be they'll be a little bit more hesitant. Reece James won't get as far forward because he knows from the England camp, he knows from playing with Marcus Rashford the threat in behind, so I think he'll be a little bit more hesitant. And Alonso as well. Jadon Sancho against Alonso, that's one-way traffic if United are on the front foot. So, look, Chelsea are favourites. Chelsea are at the top of the table. They've obviously got a good midfield. I think Kovacic, I think he might be injured as well. And I know he's been playing well for Chelsea as well. So, it's one of those that it wouldn't shock you if United turn up and get a win. There's that feel-good factor. I wouldn't call it like a new manager bounce type thing, but there is not a feel-good factor in off the back of Ollie leaving. Obviously, there's a negative feeling around that, but there is something to look forward to now with the new manager. With progression in the Champions League. At the end of the day, though, Chelsea are still favourites. You definitely take a draw away at the bridge, but there is some type of optimism. I don't know where it comes from, but there is a sort of slight hope for me.
Yeah, because Carrick's at the wheel. George, does Pogba come back in? His suspension is over, but he's injured, mate. He's gone for at least another 2 months, I think. So won't be seeing Paul LaBille for a little while. Got Emad. Let's hope Lukaku brings his donkey first touch. Mate, he doesn't need to bring it. He brings it every single week. The thing with Lukaku, Tom, I think we've had this discussion before. If I were to compare him to a player, it's not Drogba. Forget that they're both of an African descent and they're both big gentlemen. I think he's a Chicharito, mate. He's a big Chicharito. Except Chicharito had a better touch, to be fair.
No, I thought Chicharito, although I loved him, he's one of my favourite strikers, but he couldn't play football. Lukaku can't play football. Great striker in and around the box. I know it sounds stupid, but he can score goals when given the chances. But in terms of playing football, he can't do it, say, with Chicharito. And obviously, when you look at them, completely different. The sort of polar opposites, but I think in the way they played or what they offered, identical, really dangerous in and around the box. But get them to play. I sort of remember Louis van Gaal, the camera used to pan to him every time the ball went into Chicharito and it bounced off him. The look Louis van Gaal gave him was just, oh my God, this guy's not a footballer. But yeah, the comparison, it sounds stupid, but I completely agree.
Absolutely. Got Ian, Donny 8, Bruno 8, Fred in the 6, go 4-3-3. Very interesting. Really keen to see how Carrick sets up, and we will bring you our starting 11s. If you're happy Ralf Rangnick is going to be Manchester United manager, like the video. Make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for tuning in. We're not ending the video here, though. Got Ian, no chance to go 4-3-3. I agree with you, and we'll come back there. What about your boy Martial? We'll get there, Josh. Can I just say, I said he'd start against Villarreal. You all laughed at me, and that's exactly what happened. Just a kind reminder. Let's hope we get a new manager bounce. Well, we're not going to get it this game. Carrick's at the wheel. And then we've got, is this the game for one, Mata? Josh, don't ask this. I want to wrap this video up in the next 10 minutes. You're going to have Tom going for the next half an hour.
Well, he should be penciled. Well, look, he's not going to play, of course not. This is all a bit tongue-in-cheek, but Michael Carrick obviously will take notes from Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson would play a player against their former club. Now, one matter obviously is not sort of match fit. He can't go in there, but maybe off the bench. It'll be interesting. I haven't seen your team yet, but obviously Bruno Fernandes didn't play, so does Bruno. Is he going to be the first substitution? But if Bruno's on, who's on the right-hand side? So, look, one matter's not playing. I think he's penciled in, obviously, for young boys.
All right, Tom. Well, let's bring up your starting 11. So please talk me through your team. You clearly haven't selected one, Mata. So please, pleasure. Floor's all yours.
I think it picks itself. I know the situation with Donny van de Beek started over Bruno Fernandes, but I think, as you say, Donny van de Beek played well. But as you alluded to, when Bruno Fernandes came on, he almost single-handedly almost changed the game type thing. So I think Bruno deserves to play. I think it's a tough game for Carrick to leave him out. Bruno Fernandes is a big player, big personality. And in a game like this, you might only get one or two chances against Chelsea. Maybe two if we're lucky. Maybe only get one chance. If you want that fall into Bruno, whether that be an assist situation or on the end of a chance type thing. So I think you do need Bruno in this team. Whether he can be disciplined enough, because I don't know how the game's going to pan out. Are we going to be on the front foot? Chelsea are a little bit off it. Or are we going to be sort of pinned back and sort of wait and get them on the counter-attack? Time will tell. But I think other than that, picks itself, obviously, a lot of people will be happy with Maguire's injury. Eric Bailly obviously comes in. I assume Luke Shaw is injured. He obviously didn't travel to Villarreal. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait for Solskjaer's press conference, but I'll go Tellez, and I've alluded to that before. I think Tellez is a better left back.
Solskjaer's press conference, eh? Can't wait for that one. He's not going to be there.
Yeah, you'll be waiting a while for that one, obviously. It rolls off the tongue. I can't bring myself to say Carrick's press conference. It doesn't quite sound right. But I think Tellez plays at left back. No, there's obviously always a debate in regards to midfield and the pivot. Just Van de Beek playing there. I was maybe toying a little bit with Nemanja Matic over McTominay because obviously Fred did quite well against Villarreal. But there was something about me, I don't know, and it absolutely makes no sense and it doesn't impact anything at all. The only reason I really went for McTominay over Matic, something about having two left footers in midfield. Just when I saw it on paper, I said, hang on, you're not going to play both the left footers in there. So I said, no, we'll play Scott McTominay. And I know that absolutely means nothing. But yeah, there's a toss of flip of a coin between McTominay and Matic for me.
Interesting. I've got Alex and Rob here saying graphics straight out of FIFA 98. I swear to you, lads, this is exactly why I chose this platform. I just love how old school it looks. I feel like I'm on the Nintendo. Good times. Did you ever play FIFA 98, Tom?
Yeah, my first FIFA was FIFA 96. Then FIFA 98 was the World Cup game. I was old school Brazilian Ronaldo. FIFA 98, I think, was one of the best FIFAs. That was the old World Cup game, Road to World Cup. I'm showing my age, but my first FIFA was FIFA 96.
Showing your age there. All right. Well, it's time to bring up my 11. So why have I gone with this side? A little bit different to Tom's. The bigger mission for mine is I've dropped Bruno Fernandes. Now, I'm assuming that Luke Shaw's fit, so I've gone with Shaw at left back. Reasoning for this side, Tom, and why I think mine is the one that should go out onto the pitch as opposed to yours. Bruno Fernandes, for mine, is one of our best players with Cristiano Ronaldo. Undoubtedly, he's been phenomenal for Manchester United. But I think if I think that we're at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea are likely going to dominate the ball. We're trying to play our way back into being confident. I think we need to approach this game the same way we approached the Villarreal match. Look, not to necessarily invite Chelsea onto us, but absorb pressure. We're not going to go there and dominate the ball. You look at the players they have in midfield, even with the supposed injuries that they have, I still think Chelsea have a much more quality outfit. And if I'm being entirely honest, they're just a much more confident side at the moment. They're at home. They will have the ascendancy to push on. So I'm going with a three-man midfield. I think that we saw enough against Villarreal. Well, yes, we did concede some opportunities in the first half, but I thought as the game went on, United did look more solid. And I think if you can play this three, Van der Beek, McTominay, Fred, you'll get a work rate, but most importantly, you will keep the system. I love Bruno, but he rushes out like a headless chicken. And I think you need to keep this. You need to keep everyone in place here. And what I'd be looking to do, though, is around, if we can keep a clean sheet, 65th minute mark, I'd be throwing Bruno Fernandes on there. And I think when he comes onto the pitch, much like he did earlier, look in the channels, Rashford, Sancho, And the reason I say, Tom, if United get a draw in this match, I think that's a fantastic result. So I'm not necessarily buying into my side being negative. I think this is the side that will get us the result. And if you get a draw against your big opponents, I think you're a happy boy.
Look, I completely agree with the draw. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, no, you have to go win every game." No, away at Chelsea, a draw is very acceptable. You definitely take a draw. Obviously, go with the ambition to win, but get what you get out of it. But my question for you in terms, and we've had this discussion before, and I think the whole fan base has, and this is very much similar in terms of McTominay, Fred, in terms of where you've lined them up in midfield. How I see it played out against Villarreal, I thought McTominay was a little bit deeper, closer defenders, and Fred was a little bit more advanced. You almost saw that in the goal type thing. However, could you just sort of clarify in terms of, do you think Carrick's doing this, or what you would do? Because we've both had this discussion and say, well, Fred should be what McTominay is, and McTominay should be a little bit more advanced and sort of being able to bomb forward. But here, you've almost gone to what we did against Villarreal, and McTominay's in the position he's not quite suited to.
I actually think Carrick will go with this. I really do. I think his comments prior to the match against Villarreal, he said Bruno Fernandes has been fantastic, but there's a team to be picked. And I think that was that's not a player being rested. He didn't come out and say, I'm resting Bruno for the match against Chelsea, or, Bruno's been playing a lot of football. I thought it was best to pull him out. He said there's a team to be picked. Well, if there's a team to be picked, that's telling me Bruno Fernandes has been told, mate, you need to pull your finger out. And I thought he was fantastic. He responded perfectly. He responded how I'd expect an elite player to respond. But I think it can't stop there. I think let's do this because, like I said, as much as I love Bruno, I criticize Ronaldo for saying, not necessarily criticize Ronaldo. The signing of Ronaldo has impacted the way United set up. Bruno Fernandes plays to his own beat. He doesn't have the discipline of playing a system. He's petulant. He carries on. I think with Donny van de Beek, maybe he's not as good as Bruno Fernandes. But what he does have is he's an intelligent footballer. He knows how to read space, and he'll know how to tuck in deep. And I think with these three players, you'll get a work rate. You'll have players who will work off the ball, and they'll be able to keep things compact. And I like the inclusion of Eric Bailly. I think the Maguire suspension might be a blessing in disguise, because this game for Eric Bailly, I think, is perfect. Against a big physical striker like Romelu Lukaku, Eric Bailly is the one I want in there. So I think this is the right way to go.
Just on Donny van de Beek, and not to sort of start a war between Van de Beek and Bruno type thing. And look, Ralf Rangnick isn't confirmed yet, or by the time people listen to this, maybe he has, but it's not actually official. But let's say it is official, which we're all going with. Michael Carrick's taken this team. Obviously, I think it's a few days before Ralf Rangnick, in terms of work permit, will be sort of available to travel to England. But would he have an impact? Do you think Ralf Rangnick has been on the phone to Michael Carrick and said, look, I'm taking the team against Arsenal in a week's time. I need this player to have minutes, or I want him to get a bit familiar with this role. Can you please play him there? Do you think Ralf Rangnick has an input in this team? If he is the manager and it's all been agreed and they've had phone calls, or is this Michael Carrick's, this is his 11?
No, I think it's Carrick's 11. I don't think Ralf Rangnick is egotistical enough or naive enough to start getting in Carrick's ear. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the coaching staff. We don't know if Carrick and McKenna are going to stick around, Mike Phelan, or whether these coaches are thinking we might be out of work in a couple of days' time. So I'm going to go out there and try and win the football match against Chelsea, against the league leaders. And if they can do that, maybe their future's not at United, but they'll sure have a future elsewhere. I'll tell you that.
I just saw a comment from Josh saying if Carrick does win, he'll go down as United's greatest ever manager in regards to win rate. He'll obviously win both games and 100% win record. And again, that is why I go back to, look, I'm not saying Michael Carrick should stay or he should go. Maybe he should have gone with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's a moot point. I think the only issue, the only discussion I have around Michael Carrick is saying, well done, pleased for him. It's a proud moment to be Manchester United manager, and he's taken it on well, doing well. So I'm just proud, just happy for him. I understand all the criticisms and the need to look to the future, but the abuse I'm seeing towards him on social media is just, look, sadly, it's not shocking, it's not surprising, but every time I do see it, it does piss me off.
Too many Teletubbies on Twitter nowadays. Take up a lot of space, and people shouldn't give them attention. You better grow up from Teletubbies. Something I enjoyed as a 4-year-old. So I'm just saying, if you're following a Teletubby or someone who looks like or resembles a Teletubby on Twitter, and you value their opinions and the hate that they bring, into the United fan base, just saying, most of us moved on from the Teletubbies when we were 5. So maybe as a grown adult or maybe adolescent teenager, just, think about it. All right, Tom, how much are United winning by?
Ronaldo scoring. I can see Ronaldo scoring. Obviously, as a very famous goal against Chelsea. Obviously, Moscow in the Champions
Oh,
League
geez,
final.
we haven't spoken about it. The battle of the pensioners. We've got Thiago Silva, 37 years of age, up against Cristiano Ronaldo, 36.
Yeah, no, look, Thiago Silva. He's one of those ones when he did come into the league. There was a lot of criticism with Edison Cavani. Edison Cavani was too old, and he was over the hill. But Thiago Silva was this great signing. It was different narratives in terms of some of the journalists sort of talked about it. But Edison Cavani has done well. Thiago Silva has done well. Ronaldo's obviously done well, but his age is obviously on the top, sort of tip of everyone's tongue. But you back Ronaldo to score. It's a big goal against Villarreal. If we do get a chance, you could see that happening. Obviously, Mendy for Chelsea, their goalkeeper's obviously been in very good form. And arguably, if there's one keeper maybe being better than De Gea this season, it's possibly Mendy. I haven't seen too much of them. I would sort of maybe opt for David De Gea. But here I'm saying the Chelsea man's top of the table. So he obviously has a pretty strong claim to be the best goalkeeper in the league this season. So big game for Ronaldo. As I said, with Bruno Fernandes or Ronaldo, we might only get 2 chances, maybe even only 1 chance. They're going to need to take it when it comes because it is going to be a tough game. Like, you get these big games. Okay, Liverpool's a big game, City's a big game, Tottenham's a big game. Chelsea away, even if they were shit or we were good, they were a bogey team. Away at Stamford Bridge is just hard. So, but under Solskjaer, we had a decent little record there. So tough. I'll go 1-1 draw. I think Ronaldo will score, but Chelsea and Manchester United's defence, it wouldn't shock you if we do concede. So I can't tip a loss, but I'd definitely be happy with a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to go there. I'm with you. I'm thinking 1-1 draw as well. Come to some comments before we leave. What do you guys think? Get your comments in. How do you think the scoreline's going to go? Emad thinks Chelsea's going to win 3-1 because he's got the home side. Home side goes on the left, Emad. So you're thinking a 3-1 win for Chelsea? Good to see your allegiance is strong. We've got Ian, 2-0 United. 1-0 to Fred. Fred's going to score the winner. All right, you serious? If Fred scores the winner, Tom, you got to do the next video in your underpants.
Who's to say I'm not in them now? Just the top half.
Please don't drop the camera. Don't drop the camera. Do not drop the camera. Emad, Thiago looks 37 though. Ronaldo looks 26. Mate, Cristiano Ronaldo, I was having this debate. I was chatting to my boss at work today. And I'm looking at pictures of Ronaldo as an 18-year-old. And I'm looking at pictures of Ronaldo as a 36-year-old. Telling you, he looks younger. And I don't think that's by coincidence. Money does wonderful things, doesn't it? He looks great, don't get me wrong. But hey, you know what? If I had the money, yeah, I'd be doing fillers and Botox and a lot too. Got George hoping for 1-0, but think it'll be 1-1. Look at us. No one here is predicting a United loss. Are we that stubborn or are we just all geniuses?
I think it's hard. Like, have you ever, even if but even if we were up against prime Barcelona, you'd still find a way in your head to believe. Even when you think in that heart v head debate, even when you think with your head, you can see a situation where you can get something out of it. And I think that is part of being a fan because we don't watch Chelsea every week. You do watch United every week, and you do see your weaknesses, but we do see our players, and we think, well, if they play well, they can hurt Chelsea. If Man United play to their abilities, we've got a better team than Chelsea, we can win. Obviously, there's a very likely chance we won't play to our abilities, and Chelsea, maybe their average is a little bit higher. So, yeah, I like the confidence. You're gonna have to accept it.
Absolutely. And we've got the wisest Simpson of all predicting CR7 will get his treble. So we're saying, so Mr. Simpson thinks there's going to be a hat trick. Tom, do you care to respond to your mother?
I don't like the use of treble. I think she's still using the treble from 1999. I like the old school use of hat trick. But when's Ronaldo's last hat trick? Was it Newcastle in 2008? Well, not his last hat trick, but his last one for United.
For United, yeah, I think so.
So, look, he'll score a hat trick at some stage this season. Away at Chelsea, I don't think it's happening there. I think we'll be lucky to have 3 shots on goal the whole game.
I'll tell you what, if Ronaldo manages to get a hat trick against Chelsea and the Ronaldo-Messi debate from ever continuing, he deserves a golden statue.
We're going to have that debate in a couple of weeks when PSG get drawn against Man United, because obviously they're finishing second in their group. We finished first of our group. You don't have to watch that Champions League draw. We have PSG
written in the
confirmed.
stars, isn't it?
It's
written
confirmed.
in the stars. 100%. Fabrizio Romano would be saying, here we go, PSG to Manchester United confirmed at Old Trafford, February 2022. All right, well, it's been a pleasure. That's been a wrap. Cheers for tuning in. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Ralf Rangnick will be at the wheel soon. He'll be bringing the sausages, the schnitzel, the pork knuckle. It'll all be here. Luke Shaw better stay out of the buffet. Tell you what. Now, some of the memes.
Did you see that meme that Ahmad put up in our group chat?
Yeah. Keep your hands off the biscuits, number 23.
It's like the Simpsons episode. What was his name?
Stop. I'm full of chocolate. Oh, God. I could talk about The Simpsons forever, but we will leave it there. Pleasure. Cheers for tuning in, Tom. Catch you Monday, eh?
Always. Cheers, man.
Cheers, guys. Have a good weekend.